Hello, I'm Marin, and I have something to say today. Did you know if you take a piece of yarn and you stretch it out, it looks like it's going in just a line, and that's all it is? But if you look closely, the piece of yarn has a circumference, so it has multiple sides, and it's a circle. And then if you look even closer, each portion, each piece of that yarn that you're holding out has little hairs, little fibers that are going off of it as well. And all those things put together, the circumference, the tiny little fibers that are coming off of it, and the line, is creating its whole. And there's nothing missing from it. There's nothing missing from that piece of yarn. If we're just holding a piece of yarn, we have a piece of yarn, we're holding it, and we can take that piece of yarn, we can turn it into a bow, we can take that piece of yarn and just kind of wad it up and put it in a ball, or we can keep it straight. But when we look at it, it's whole. It has a circumference and it has all of the millions of fibers. And the fibers start at the very beginning, over here at the very onset, and they branch off all the way to the very end of the yarn. Our life is whole also. I speak with many, many people that have this understanding that their life is linear, that they made agreements before they came down here and they're helping other people learn patience, or they're helping other people learn something, or other people are helping them learn something. And I mean, while we're here, yes, we're here to observe and learn, and it's a benefit of being here, the learning and collaboration with everybody else. That kind of, my mispronunciations go hand in hand with what I was going to say today, because I was going to say that I don't pronounce Sanskrit very well, and I really don't pronounce English very well. But we will be working with both of them today, just a little bit. When people come to me and they tell me about their agreements, and they tell me about what their path is supposed to be, like they have certain markers on this path and they can change their fate, they can change the markers on the fate. There are several things that I do ask, and when someone tells me that they have changed their fate, that they have changed what was supposed to happen, I just simply like to ask, how did you know what was supposed to happen? How did you know that the choice you made to change this fate wasn't already there? Wasn't part of the whole thing anyway? It's not wrong to have these beliefs because they help us get through this life. But when we are looking at trying to figure out what makes us whole, what we're missing on the inside, because sometimes we feel like we're empty. Sometimes we feel like there's something missing. And it's hard to figure that out. Okay, here's my Sanskrit. Sanskrit. I do the same thing for English, so bear with me here. The things that I see don't translate very well into speech. So, Sad Sid Anand, Sad Sid Anand, or Sata Sita Anand. Same thing. Basically, what those three words are, or the three symbols that they represent, are three parts of the Brahman. And the Brahman is absolute reality. The Brahman is the ultimate consciousness. It is the ultimate reality, what some people might call God, or the wholeness, the absolute oneness. And the three parts, the three sounds I made, symbolize being. The first one, Sat, it symbolizes being or existence, reality, and truth. And Sit is observation, knowledge, being aware. It's basically consciousness. And then Anand is a state of bliss. It is joy, or I like to say beauty. When you put those three elements together, it creates a whole. It creates the circumference of our string, of our yarn, and more, much, much more. But by using these three sounds, these three words, and we put them together to create the Brahman, or to create part of the Brahman, that is what fills us inside. Our life isn't just a string. It might look like a piece of yarn, but it's actually the piece of yarn. It is actually the circumference, and it actually is every single one of those little fibers that comes off of that yarn, and it creates a whole. Imagine at the very beginning of this piece of yarn is our inception, okay? So the sperm hits the egg, and we create ourselves a firework, like I've said many, many times before. And every single one of those little fibers on this yarn, because we're just going to make it like a string today, even though I see it as a orb, we're going to turn it into like a string today. Every single one of those fibers from the very, very, very beginning all the way to the very, very end is a different iteration of this exact life that we are living. Every single one of those is a piece of our life. It's a different interaction. It's a different choice. It's playing out every single scenario that could possibly play out. And every single scenario that is playing out is just as tangible, is just as real as we feel right now. The thing is we can only pay attention to one of those trajectories. We can only observe one of those trajectories as we go down it. So one particle, we've said this before, can be in multiple places at multiple times. And it's only one particle, but it can be everywhere. When we are playing out the little fibers on our string today, every iteration of us believes that is the only iteration that we are on, because we are paying that particle piece of us is only observing that one trajectory. So we have our particle, my Marin-Mutter particle, is playing out every single one of those trajectories simultaneously. And simultaneously, I can only focus on the trajectory I am on. So right now, I am talking to you, and I'm focused on this trajectory. And I can't see the trajectory or play out the trajectory while I'm here of a different one. And I know I am completely confusing right now. It is such a hard concept to explain in words. But essentially, we are living out a whole. And so it's important to know this, because in the end, there is nothing that we are going to have to come back to do because we didn't do it here, because we're doing all of it. And there's nothing we're going to be punished for. We're not going to have to come back to another life because of karma. We're like literally living karma out right now. So we are whole, and we are complete, and we are beautiful. I wanted to share a story today, and the story is about my son who passed away. And as my children were growing up, I would always say, I wish you could see what I see. I wish you could see how I see you, because you are beautiful, just as you are, absolutely beautiful. And I see that in everyone. But I would tell my children, and like growing up, it's hard to see that sometimes. And it's hard to see that even as adults, that we are enough, that we are whole and beautiful, and we have truth that is creating us, and we have observation, we have the consciousness that is an intricate part of us, and then we have this bliss, joy, or beauty that is part of us. And it's all part of this experience here on Earth. I had never really told anyone that this is what I would tell my children, and even before my son passed away, we sat on the phone, and it was just probably a month before. And I said, Davy boy, when I look at you, it's just stunning. You're stunning, absolutely beautiful. Like I've told him many, many times before. And we had our conversation around that, and sometimes it's just hard to believe. It's hard to believe that within us all, within every single one of us, resides this Brahman, resides this absolute beauty, this all-encompassing whole beauty is in every single one of us. And it's very hard sometimes to see that, and it's very hard to comprehend that, especially when we have so much noise all the way around us all the time telling us what we should and shouldn't do, and that if we don't do it, we're going to be bad, and if we don't look a certain way, then it's not good. And I mean, there's just so much noise that keeps us from hearing what resonates within us, hearing the truth, hearing the consciousness. So when my son passed away, a year went by, and I don't know how that year went by exactly. It was very hard. I moved and finally settled in. Well, I was already in the Big Sur area, and I moved into my house officially in Big Sur, and it has a little cottage. And I had a woman come up to talk to me about some experiences she was having, and we sat in the cottage and spoke, and this was the first time I had ever met her. She didn't know anything about me. She definitely didn't know my son passed away, because it's not something I spoke about typically to clients, especially when I first met someone, because I was fresh out of it. I just didn't really want I couldn't voice it because I'd just cry. So after we met, and it was such a nice afternoon, she got up to leave, and she opened the door and stepped out. And then all of a sudden, she stepped back in and she says, I feel like I want to tell you something. And I said, all right. What would you like to say? And she said, I feel like there's energy here that wants to tell you something. I said, okay, what would you like to say? I said, you can tell me anything. And she says, it just wants to say, you're right. I am beautiful. You were right. I am beautiful. Sometimes it is so hard to see people struggle. When you just want to wrap your arms around them and let them know it's going to be okay. That in the end, everything works out just as it should. And that you are beautiful inside and outside, I think. And I think that's what I wanted to tell everyone today, is that just as you are, you are beautiful. And I know I have clients that, we're working on their transition out of this life. And those transitions can be hard and they can be very scary, and you don't want to leave, and you don't want to leave the people you love behind. Maybe you think you've made mistakes that are unforgivable. But how I see you, you are so much more than this physical body. You are so much fuller than this beautiful body that you're in. And it's going to be okay. If that's the one gift that I can give, is it's going to be okay, and you are enough just as you are, because you are going to be whole. You are whole. When this iteration of your life is done, you are going to be so full and love and light and the deepest compassion you can ever imagine. Actually, beyond that, because we can't imagine it here. So, as we live out our yarn, which really isn't just a line from here to there. For me, it looks like an orb, or it looks like the firework. As we live it out, and our life iteration ends all the time, all the way till it's all the way done. Every single bit of those little fibers and every single bit of that wrapping, the individual wrapping and twinings in there are you. And every single one is going to give you this depth and understanding and probably much more than I could ever explain in words. And we're all going to be okay. We are all whole. Every single one of us. And nothing is going to be able to take that away. Because you literally are love. So I think that's what I wanted to say today. And it comes out hodgepodge a lot of times, but hopefully you're able to decipher Marinisms and can figure out what I was trying to say. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.